Where the last video left off was that we were working at exponentials, and we had figured out that you can come in here and say a cell to the power of whatever you want will give you, and you can find that number. So what if you wanted to find, say, what the square root of 97 was, or if we change this number to 64. Remember that this is cell reference, so it automatically changes, but we want to figure out what the square root of a number like 64 is. What we do is we actually come in here, and of course we're going to use equals because we're doing a formula. Click on the cell we want to reference. Again, we're going to use that caret hat, that symbol, that's shift 6. We're going to put this in parentheses. We say 1 divided by 2. 1 divided by 2 is equal to 0.5. You could actually come in here and say, instead of 1 divided by 2, you could say 0.5. 0.5 is another way, or as far as exponentials go, is another way of saying square roots. So we say that, we find that the square root of 64 is equal to 8, which is what we have. So you can actually do square root or find fractions of the exponentials as well. Now the next thing I want to show you is the sum function. So if we look right up here, we have an array of cells. So what if you wanted to know what all of these numbers were added up? And instead of going in here and saying equals this plus, this plus, this plus, and just doing that all the way down, it would take a lot longer than what I'm about to show you. So what you do is you say equals sum. As you see down here, it says sum of a series of numbers and or cells. So we click on that. We highlight this array, close parentheses, and what we find is that the sum of all these numbers is equal to 8,147. Now what if you want to know exactly how many cells are in this array? Instead of actually going and saying, okay, here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, here's 4, you can actually go in and say equals count. As we see here, it says count of numeric values in a database. Click on that. You highlight the same cells. Press enter. Now we know that there are 18 values within this array. Now there's another part of Excel or Google Sheets and Excel that we need to talk about, and it's PEMDAS. If you remember back from middle school and high school, there's an order of operations. And the way it works is that it does parentheses first, then exponentials, multiply, divide, addition, and subtraction. That's the order that numbers are worked in. And Google Sheets follows these same orders. So if we went in here and we said equals, open parentheses, 9 times 6 to the power of, say, 2, close parentheses, times 7, say 7 plus 5 divided by 4 minus 1, and then say plus 8. So we have a lot of stuff in there. And what it's actually going to do is it's going to follow these order of operations. What it'll do is it'll read the parentheses first. Anything that's within parentheses is going to be calculated first. So within these parentheses, we have an exponential and a multiplication. So what it's going to do is it's actually going to take L9 to the power of M10. Then it's going to multiply by the K9. And then it's going to come up with the value for in here. Then what we'll see is that we'll handle all the multiplication next. So then we'll take this number times this number. This number will be divided by this number, and then we'll add and subtract everything. So if we actually broke it down, we're going to say, I'm going to copy this real quick just so I have a reference. So we said, in parentheses, we said equal. Within the parentheses, the first thing we have is the exponential. So we said equals L9 to the power of M10. Then we said we had this number times K9, and that was what was in parentheses. And then we had what was in parentheses times L10. Off to the side here, we had equals L11 divided by M11. So then we had this number plus this number minus K10 plus K11. And what we find is that we follow those order of operations and we came up with the exact same number. So for whenever you're dealing with Google Sheets and Excel, it's always going to be working off of the same order. It's going to be following these PEMDAS. The next thing I'd like to talk about is dates. So Google Sheets works really well with putting in dates and finding the difference between dates. So if we wanted to know how many days were between, say, today's or September 8th, 2016 and August 31st, 2014. So what I did was I just put in 2 dates here. And you can put in dates as we showed you on the last video. You can set up patterns of dates and it'll follow these patterns. So but say we wanted to know the difference between these 2 dates. We simply subtract one from another. And as we looked at over here, we found out how to subtract 2 cells from each other. So we can come right here and we say equals this number minus this date. We figure out that there are 739 days in between this date and this date. How is Excel or Google Sheets able to calculate this? Well, each date has a number associated with it. I'm going to copy these numbers over real quick. 8-1-16. We got 8-31-16. So these two are the exact same dates from here. What we're going to do is we're going to come over here. We're going to go to more formats. We're going to type in number. We're going to do this for both of the dates. So as you can see, each date has a specific number associated with it. And then you can say equals this number minus this one. That did not work out as well as I hoped. Maybe I'm off on what I'm thinking. Oh, that's what was going on. You need to type in 8-31-14 to match this date. This one was 9-8-16 to match that date. So if we change both of these into number format, we see that there's a number associated with each date according to Google Sheets. Then we can say equals this minus this. And that allows us to give us the exact number of days in between 2 dates. And you can also, and that works really well whenever you're trying to find how many days have elapsed in between 2 things. There's another function that I want to show you, and it says equals today. So if you type in equals today, it's going to give us today's date. I'm filming this particular video on September 8, 2016. You can see it down here according to my calendar. And it shows up today's date. So that can be very useful if you want to try and keep a running tab on how long something has been. And say, you can also use a function called equals now. Equals now gives the date and time so that this was made. So if you look right here, today's date is September 8, 2016, and the time is 9:39. So if you want to figure out exactly whenever something happens, you type in equals now, and it'll show what that was. So if we say equals now again, it'll automatically update. Every time we do something on this page, it automatically updates. So equals now, it keeps a running tab. So if you wanted to figure out, you know, if this was 9-6-2016 and the time was at 8:39:35, you could come in here and say equals this minus this to figure out how much time has lapsed. Here it's saying 2 days, and if we change this into time, well, we're going to do date time. So it's actually not giving me what I wanted, so we're going to go back to the number format, and it's showing that 2.04 days have lapsed in between these two times. Now, these come in real handy whenever you're trying to calculate something like average daily gain. So let's say you have an animal that weighs the initial weight of, say, 550 pounds. The final weight is, say, 650 pounds. And whenever you first weighed him, it was, say, August 31st, 2016. The final weight, whenever you weighed him the second time, was, say, October 31st, 2016, just throwing off random dates. So Google Sheets makes it very easy to calculate average daily gain. So what is average daily gain? What is the formula for it? It says final weight minus initial weight divided by final date minus initial date. So what we come in here is we just say, we're going to come right here, I'm going to say equals, final, or open parentheses, final weight of 650 minus initial weight of 550 divided by, open parentheses, final date minus initial date. And we figure out that the average daily gain is actually 1.63, say, pounds per day. This video has kind of been more or less a brief overview of some of the functions that you can use in Google Sheets. There are a whole lot more functions. You can do all sorts of stuff with this. These are some of the basic functions, such as addition, subtraction, how to sum up a bunch of numbers, count a bunch of numbers, kind of a brief overview of using dates, some more functions such as equals today and equals now, talked about the order of operations, if-then statements. But these are just very basic functions that you can use in Google Sheets. I encourage you to go in there and look through more of these functions, try to figure out other ways that you can use Google Sheets to really help yourself out in both the business world, the personal world, agribusiness world, because it is a very, very powerful program that you can use for virtually everything.